Goldylocks Productions broadcasts universal cosmic frequencies that unlock, awaken, and expand the consciousness of our worldwide viewers and listeners. Welcome to the Transformational Soul Show with your host, Ruth Soltman. Are you ready to experience more stability in your life? You can change your life and be who you are meant to be, your authentic self.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Ruth Soltman, and welcome to the Transformational Soul. If you're here for the first time, welcome. Really glad to have you. And if you've been here before, welcome back. I'd like to say hi to everybody watching on Rumble. We're really grateful for you guys as well. So before we get started, hello, Sarah. Let's all take a deep breath. Just take a deep breath, let it out and relax. And let's do that again. And one more time. As we gather together here, we ask for our spiritual tribes to come in and form a sacred circle around us. We ask for all of the angels and archangels, all of our guides and angels, our healing angels, our higher selves, and all of our ancestors that have gone before to join with us now. We ask our spiritual tribe to wrap this sacred circle in a beautiful light-filled bubble of the highest vibration of love and light. We ask that we be open to all the messages that we receive and that we receive them with a love-filled heart and an open mind. We ask that they help us to heal and be for our highest and best good. We ask that we hear exactly what we need to hear and that we feel it at our very core. We ask that all messages be given and received with the highest vibration of love and light. And so it is. Well, hello, Jill. Thank you so much for your super sticker. Jill says, hello, everyone. I could use some healing prayers for my husband having a heart cath and stent put in tomorrow. All right. Well, we will be sending them. Hello, Kim. Nice to see you. Sending lots of prayers to your husband, Roy, Jill. So I have a few announcements before we get started. I hope you guys can join us this Saturday for the Spiritual Message Circle. It's at 8 p.m. Eastern. And for a donation of $10 or more, you get a message from all of us that are on the show, all the different show hosts. And so that's a really great deal. And if you've been, on the Spiritual Message Circle before, it's a lot of fun. And I just want to let you guys know that all of my books are available on Amazon. And if you have read any, I ask that you please leave me a review. I would really appreciate that. You could leave it on Amazon, Goodreads, or on my Facebook page, by Transformation Books. And please check out my website, www.ruthsoltman, RUTH, S as in Sam, OLTMAN as in Nancy.com. You can find out more about my services there and about upcoming releases. So last week, I had talked to you guys about writing a testimonial for me, my show, or any of the Goldylocks shows or show hosts. You guys know I would never ask you to do something that I wasn't willing to do myself. So the next day after my show, I sat down and I wrote a testimonial for every one of our shows, including one talking about how much I love to be a part of the Goldylocks family. And seriously, it took me maybe 5 to 7 minutes total from the time I started until I hit send in the email. And I did it all from my phone while I was having my morning coffee. You don't have to write a paragraph or two, just maybe 2 or 3 sentences. So this week, I'm challenging every single one of you that can hear my voice. If you love our shows, write a testimonial and send it to either me or my producer, Tiffany White Sage Woman. I'm challenging each one of you to write one testimonial for every show you watch. Now, who's willing to accept this challenge? I really hope that each and every one of you are, because it will only take a few minutes from your day. And I think you'll feel really good about it. And instead of just asking you to do one, I'm asking you to do one for every show you watch. Yay, Kim's going to do it. Kim likes all the shows. I do too. I watch every single one. Oh, thanks, Tiffany. Tiffany said that's a great challenge. I think it is. And I think that we need this. Let Goldylocks and Tiffany and all of the hosts know that you appreciate what they're doing. Let them know that their shows are making a difference for you. I think, everybody needs to hear that once in a while. Okay, Sarah's going to take that challenge as well. Awesome. Oh, awesome. Jill's going to do it too this weekend. She said she'd be happy to. Well, awesome. Of course, now, all of you, I'm going to watch all the comments throughout the show and after the show. And all of you who said you accepted it, we're going to check back next week and see how you did. Check out the Goldylocks Productions online store. There's a lot of really great merchandise. Melissa Parks has a store there too. And if you've been following any of this Magnitude jewelry party, there's an Easter one going on right now. So let Tiffany know if you would like an invite. We talk about this jewelry all the time because it's really awesome. And, you get some perks for purchasing the jewelry through a party than if you were just to go, to the website or whatever, however it works. I don't know. I've only done it through the party. So I hope you guys caught the show last week. Heather Hunter was live with us for the Words of Wisdom. Thank you so much, Heather, for coming on here and owning your story. I'm so proud of you for stepping outside of your comfort zone and, taking control. Your story was amazing. I heard from a lot of people. I know it inspired other people because they've told me. The Words of Wisdom segment gives you the opportunity to come on to tell your story, to come on and own your story, and it will empower you. Your story will inspire and motivate somebody else. Next month on April 13th, Heidi Petey is going to be here to own her story. If you would like to come on and tell yours, then you can message me on Facebook or email me at ruth@ruthsoltman.com. Now, I got some really exciting news. When I published my first book, Metamorphosis, A Journey of the Soul, it was back in October of 2020. And that time, that's when everything was shut down. All of my events for the year had been canceled and so on. So I'm really excited to announce that on May 21st, I will be doing my first ever author event. And I'm super excited. It's an event through a local bookstore. And yeah, they do still exist. And this is the 8th year they've been doing this. The event just popped up on social media, and I just happened to see it. When I saw it, I knew exactly it was meant for me. I'm like, I know it. And so I contacted them right away because, of course, I always have questions. And I got signed up today, so I'm super excited. Now, from my craft show days, I have lots of things, that I need for setting up my booth. I ordered a banner from Vistaprint last night. And it's so funny because years ago, probably at least 3 years ago, maybe longer, when I was starting my crafting stuff and I made a banner for that, well, I made designs and would save them on Vistaprint. So when I went on there, my banner was already designed. I just had to hit what size I wanted and order it. The work was already done. And when I did, it was actually 40% off. So that made me super duper excited. I've used Vistaprint before and I love the quality of their work. I've never been disappointed. Now, there still is a lot of stuff I have to get, like a decent inventory and a book display. So I'm just going to put this out there. If anyone is moved or inspired to assist me with these costs, your donation is very much appreciated. You can Venmo it at Ruth-Saltman or PayPal me at ruth.saltman@gmail.com. I am grateful to everyone who decides to donate. I'm grateful if you don't. I am grateful for you. So I'm just putting it out there. The universe will take care of it one way or another. So over a week ago, I was already getting messages about my show today, about I knew exactly what it was going to be about, and I've been taking notes, for several days. And I woke up last weekend all stuffed up, could not breathe out of my nose, and I was running a fever on and off for several days. This went on, well, for several days, and I thought, geez, okay, this needs to go away. How can I do my show if I'm constantly sneezing? I can't breathe. My nose is running. That's not going to be very pretty. And I kept hearing, the show must go on. So I said, fine. Okay, Spirit, fine. I will do my show no matter how I'm feeling, no matter what. But you need to heal me. And I need this fever and crap to go away. Because, when you get the fever, then you get the chills, and you just feel like all you want to do is lay down. So the next morning I got up, I could breathe clearly through my nose, and I haven't had a fever since. So I am super duper grateful. So today is March 23rd. 5 years ago today, my life changed forever. It was the day that my mom made her transition. Little did I know when I woke up that morning that she would be taking her last breath in a few hours. Every single one of us was birthed into this world through a woman. There is a special bond between a mother and her child. I was blessed to have my mom in my life for 53 years, and I am eternally grateful for that. So many people, don't get that. Now, I wanted to read an excerpt from my book, Metamorphosis, A Journey of the Soul. I couldn't find my book, so I printed it out, which is probably better because it'll be easier for me to read. And this is taken from the chapter on loss. It says, she woke up on a Sunday morning in March and called for me. Little did I know this would be the beginning of the end. I ran into her room. She said she thought she was having a heart attack and to call 911. They confirmed it was not a heart attack, and they took her to the hospital. I followed in my car and was there when they arrived. They discovered that one of her lungs had collapsed. That was the reason it was so difficult for her to breathe, and she felt the heaviness in her chest. They recommended that she go into hospice care. So the hospice bed arrived, and we arranged her bedroom. I slept in a twin bed next to the hospital bed in case she needed me during the night. We laid there every night talking about life, the sunrises, and anything that she wanted to talk about. She told me how much she loved me and how much she appreciated everything I did for her. We held hands every night as she was drifting off to sleep. She had been under hospice care for about a week or so, and on a Wednesday morning, she woke up acting very off. Something just wasn't right. Something did not look right. I called the hospice nurse, and she came out right away. My mom had suffered a stroke. It left one side of her body damaged. Her left eye and left side of her mouth were droopy. It was difficult for her to say what she wanted to say. She was no longer able to get out of bed because she had lost the use of her left leg. It would not move and would drag behind her. That was from the stroke. Hospice said she would probably not make it through the weekend. She would not want to live this way. Out-of-state family members were contacted. She was in and out of it the next morning. Family members were on their way. Hospice arrived. They said she was getting close to leaving. We knew it was getting close. You could tell. Everything felt different. The hospice chaplain was there, and he began reading from one of her favorite books. As she heard the words, she was letting go. The more he read, the faster and faster she was declining. I wanted to yell, stop, but I did not. I have her book. This is the book. She used to read this book all the time. She read it several times. And every time I look at the page from the day that she passed, March 23rd, it just about gives me chills because it's just so perfect for her. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm just going to read a part of it. It says, because I am infinite in all my ways, you need not fear that I will run out of resources. Abundance is at the very heart of who I am. Come to me in joyful expectation of receiving all you need, and sometimes much more. I delight in showering blessings on my beloved children. Come to me with open hands and heart, ready to receive all I have for you. And every time I get to that last sentence, I just get a chill. And this book is from Sarah Young, and it's called Jesus Calling. So that was the passage he was reading to her. And the more he would read, you could just see the faster she was going. We were gathered around her, holding her hands and telling her how much we loved her and that we would be okay. You could feel and see this strange sensation going on inside of her. This is something that I had never experienced before, of seeing this. Something like a trembling, a vibration, something. The only way I can put it into words, and words cannot do it justice, is this. It felt like a freight train running inside her. The momentum was that powerful. It started out slowly and then full speed ahead. It was almost as if you could see it and you could certainly feel it. I knew that train was coming for her and that it was going to take her away. Then she threw herself back on the bed and her eyes rolled back in her head. You could see a wave move over her body, beginning at the top of her head. As it moved from the top of her head through her body to the bottom of her feet, her complexion turned to a grayish hue. Then in an instant, it was all over. She was gone. It was the most heartbreaking and awe-inspiring experience of my life. And it was so hard to explain and so unbelievable to watch, but it was like you could just see the life wash out of her. That like her spirit was just leaving in that wave. That you could actually physically see that. As I watched my mother take her last breaths, I was flooded with so many different feelings and emotions. Enormous sadness flooded my soul. My heart was shattered into a million pieces. I felt a sense of joy and relief that her pain and suffering were over. I felt so alone, even though the house was full of people. I felt this enormous wave of energy soar through my center as her spirit left her body. It was an experience I could not put into words until now. The room was full of tears. Even though we knew for a couple of years that she was terminal, nothing prepares you for the loss of your mother. Nothing. Maybe it's because hers was the first heartbeat I ever heard. Maybe it is the bond from growing inside of her body. I do not know. What I do know is that this loss is monumental. She had lived for 74 years in a body that had always worked against her. She had illnesses that started in childhood. To some degree, she was a prisoner in her own body. She needed to be set free. She was ready to fly. She shed her earthly skin and soared into the heavens. It was her time to go. She was ready. We were not. I remember sitting outside later that day crying and thinking to myself, oh my God, I am an orphan. I realize how silly that sounds, especially since I was 53 years old at the time. But that is how I felt in the moment. I felt abandoned, alone, isolated. I was now the matriarch of my family. Going to the funeral home and the days following the funeral are much of a blur. Actually, the first 6 or 8 months after she passed are mostly a blur. My grief was immeasurable. I was just moving through the day, drowning in my grief. I was not living at all. If there was something I had to do, I would do it. Otherwise, you could find me laying on the couch with the television on until it was time to go to bed. I do not really remember what I watched. I was just kind of numb and out of touch. My life had been turned upside down. My center, my purpose was gone in an instant. I had to figure out who I was without her. My mom taught me many things in life, but most of all, she taught me love, unconditional love. I will be forever grateful and indebted to her for that. My life has so much more meaning because she was here. I think the greatest lesson that I learned from this experience, was that time is precious. Appreciate every moment and enjoy the little things. The one thing that really sticks out to me in my mind that she said to me was, Ruth, I always thought I would have more time. We were so blessed to know almost 2 years prior that she was terminally ill. It gave her time and everyone else time to say goodbye, time to say things that needed to be said, time to do things that needed to be done. Not everyone gets that time, and it truly is a blessing. Go on here. So, like I said, there were people around for days, and it was difficult for me to process my thoughts or feelings. When everybody was gone home back to their lives, it was difficult for me to process the silence. Um, it was just a terrible, terrible place to be in. And, I had taken care of my mom for a lot of years. So that's what my everyday routine was. And suddenly everything was gone. This sadness and grief was now my life. It was clear it wasn't going to go away on its own. It was my job to work through my loss. It was my job to work through this enormous hole in my heart and in my life. And I know, like, every morning I would just think, oh, she's going to come walking around that corner any minute, and I imagine this whole thing. And that's what we do. A lot of times that's how we process loss. Hello, Heather. Hi, Linnell. Aw. We all have, or we've had, or we will have, or maybe we have right now, losses, throughout our whole life. It's not something we have control over, but what we do have control over is how we react to them and how we work through those losses. I was heartbroken. I mean, I was numb, like felt physically, emotionally, mentally numb just from the intensity of the pain that I was in. I felt dazed. I felt confused, brain fog. I couldn't think clearly. I was just going through the motions of my daily life. You can't wave a magic wand and go back to feeling like your old self, when you experience a loss like that, because that person doesn't exist anymore. I remember when I was younger, I must have been in my early 20s or mid 20s, somewhere in there, because my children, some of my kids were small, and my dad's stepfather died. And this was probably, I hadn't lost anyone besides my grandma. And then he was the second one in our family. And I just remember, like, all I kept thinking to myself is, my dad ever going to be the same? He's not himself. And it scared me. And I, because I hadn't experienced that before, it just really shook me because I wasn't used to seeing my dad this other way. But, as he worked through it, of course, that all changed. Once the fog began to lift, I realized that my world was no longer the same. It took me a couple of years of just being with myself, thinking about everything, to work my way through the pain and the grief. But I did. I came out so much stronger, focused, and ready for a new chapter in my life. One of the saddest things in life to me, and it really breaks my heart, is knowing one day my children are going to go through that same pain, and I'm not going to be there physically to comfort them. And that's just very, very sad. It's, sadly a fact of life, but you can bet I'm going to be there with big arms around them in the spirit world. But that's, something that, most people do have to experience in life. Not always, I know, but a lot of times. So how do you heal from loss? I believe it's different for everyone. Everybody heals differently. I do believe, however, that you need to face the loss and you have to deal with it, or you risk the chance of it tainting everything in your life for years to come. You cannot just push your feelings under the rug and hope that they will go away. They will not. You must go through it. As you go through it, you will grow through it and come out the other side of it. Sometimes in your pain, it is difficult to see, but look for the silver lining. And it's funny because, like, people always say, well, there's some good in here somewhere. But when you're in that place that feels so dark and so alone and you feel so isolated, you don't feel like there's a silver lining. You really don't. It's hard to, tell someone that. But try to see that from your own point, because deep down, the there's a lesson here. There's something here that's going to be for your best and highest good. Figure out what that experience is trying to teach you. Every significant experience teaches you a significant lesson. Loss is devastating, debilitating, and painful. It can tear people apart and it can bring people back together. Take time to heal. Do not give yourself a time limit. It takes as long as it takes. It's different for everyone. Take all the time you need. Be angry, grieve, work through your pain and come out the other side of it. Ceasing to grieve does not take away any love that you had for the person you lost. It just means that you have accepted the loss and you are willing and able to move forward with your life. How do you know when you have healed from such a huge loss in your life? I believe it is when you can think of that person and you smile. You think of them and only warm, fond memories come to mind. It feels like the pain of losing them is a mere glimmer in the background. This is also from the same chapter in my book. For a long time, it was too painful for me to look at old photos, so I avoided doing that. Since I have healed the pain of those losses, I can now look at old photos and smile. I have enough memories of my departed loved ones to keep me warm for this lifetime. I know how blessed I am. And I have had and I still have so many loving people in my life, and I'm so very grateful. Loss has been a great teacher to me. Loss has taught me not to take people or time for granted. Do not just assume if someone is in your life today that they will be there tomorrow. Do not put anything off until tomorrow that you can do today. Your tomorrow may never come. Appreciate what you have and who you have in your life. After 3 years of grieving the most monumental loss of my life, I'm finally getting back on track and moving forward with my life. I have decided to take my mom's words to heart. We do not know how much time we have on this earth. I'm no longer putting anything off. I am living in the moment. This is not to say that I don't set long-term goals or make plans ahead of time, because I do. Some things take time to come to fruition. I just do not take time for granted anymore. I no longer assume that I can do it later instead of doing it sooner. This changing in my thoughts and my perspective have had a huge impact on my life. Living in the moment takes away the grief and the sadness of living in the past and the anxiety and stress of living in the future. There is only now. That is all we truly have. Message that friend that you've been too busy to call. Tell that someone how much you love them. Spend time with the people who matter the most. Live so that if you lost someone you love tomorrow, you know that it was clear to them how much they meant to you, without a doubt. Do not leave anything unsaid. Leave a legacy of love long after you are gone from this world. That will give all those you left behind the courage, strength, and love to move on. So the trick is, there is no trick. There is no shortcut. You have to do the work. And it's hard and it's painful. And you will do a lot of ugly crying. But when you get through the pain and the grief of your loss, or whatever issues that you are healing from, that you've been holding on to forever, you will be a changed person. You will be more you than you have ever been before. You have peeled off those layers that were burdening you and weighing you down. You'll see yourself in a completely different light, and it will be so beautiful. This is what healing looks like. You are not the same person when you come out of it as you were when you went into it. Now, I talk a lot about healing and about forgiveness. My purpose in life is to help you peel away those layers so you can get to the truth of who you are, so you can heal and see yourself in a new light, so you can live your life authentically in your truth. I can't do it for you, nor would it help you if I did or could. But I can tell you about my experiences, and I can give you tools to make it easier for you. You have to do this for yourself and your future generations. The healing that you do is not just for yourself. So a lot of times people think, well, I don't, they don't care enough to do something for themselves, or they don't feel worthy of forgiveness or worthy of being happy. But think of it this way. If you can't do it for yourself, do it for someone else, because when you heal your issues, your grief, your loss, whatever your situation is, there is a ripple effect. There is a ripple effect into past generations. There is a ripple effect into future generations. And you and all of your family are worth it. Now, I know some of you have already, worked through your stuff. Congratulations. I know how much work that is. Some of you are working through stuff now, and some are thinking, stuff? I don't have any stuff, but you do. You may not want to admit it to yourself, and that's fine. Sometimes it takes us a while till we can admit, to ourselves that we need to work on ourselves, that we need to heal ourselves of past situations and issues. But think about this. You're doing a huge disservice to yourself. You're keeping yourself in that safe place where you live, where you're comfortable. Living in that stagnant energy, never growing, never evolving on any level. And we all know someone like this. You're doing the same things day in and day out. You're keeping yourself busy all the time so you don't have to think about your stuff. You would rather be doing than to be being. You would rather be doing than to be being. Think about that for a minute. Because when you're doing, you're keeping your mind busy. You're keeping your body busy. But when you are being, you're just there. You're quiet. You quiet your mind. You be still. You listen. And that's when you start to hear all of those issues in your head. So you push them back down and start busying yourself again. But that's not going to help you at all, and it's not going to do you any good. You have to heal that stuff and release all that stagnant, stale, negative energy that's just lingering there, because it's keeping you. It's like your legs are in quicksand. You can't move anywhere. You can't go forward. You can't go back. You can't go side to side. You can't jump out. You can't do anything. You're just stuck there until you can get yourself out of that. And you do that by healing your issues. There's nothing that I can say or do that will propel you towards healing. This is your journey. And I respect that. It will happen if and when it is supposed to. But I can give you some things to think about. Would you rather live life where you push down everything you feel because it is too painful? A place where there is no growth? Or would you rather work through it and live a life full of pure love, joy, and happiness every day? Ultimately, the choice is yours. One thing that just came to me as I was reading this, and when we push down our feelings or our issues and we try to pretend that like they don't exist instead of working on them, what happens a lot of times is we feed that with alcohol. We feed that with drugs. We feed that with different kinds of addictions. Now that can happen, with different people. I'm not saying it's happening to any of you that are listening, but I'm saying that can happen. But when you hang on to all that stuff, it does affect you on every level, physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, every single level. And when you can clear that away, it raises your energy, it raises your vibration, it raises your light. Do you know how much time you have left on this earth? Nope. None of us do. Don't keep putting it off. One day you will not have it tomorrow. Heal your issues, heal your relationships. Forget or forgive those that you need to forgive, and make sure that you are number one on that list, because that tends to be where we hold on to unforgiveness the most, is with ourselves. Let unconditional love fill your heart and enter your entire being. Sometimes it can be hard to forgive yourself because you don't feel you're worthy of forgiveness. Um, but those are things that you have to work on. Whether it's a I'm not worthy issue, I'm not good enough, but you are worthy, you are good enough, and you deserve the freedom of healing yourself from all of these issues. If there's one thing that I learned in 2020 or since 2020, it's that our time here is so very precious. Um, I I can honestly say more. I would, it used to be very rare. I would get on social media and I would see, oh, my friend's relative passed away or my friend's friend passed away. But since 2020, every single day that I get on social media, there's at least one person. And um, I'm not saying that it's related to this situation since 2020, but people are uh, leaving this earth, at an unprecedented rate, it seems like, because every day I encounter someone who has just lost a family member and or a dear friend. And we're not talking like, oh, this person was 95 years old. Well, yes, they had a great life. They lived many years. No, we're talking about teenagers. We're talking about younger people. We're talking about people that were perfectly healthy, and then got hit by a bus. That wasn't the exact story, but that's an example. I mean, some crazy things. I've heard some very crazy stories um, in the last few years. We're all standing in that line to get to the other side. We just don't know how many people are in front of us. But the clock is ticking. Tiffany says, yes, two dear friends passed last week. I'm so sorry to hear that, Tiffany. Linnell says, so true. I was spun for a bit with my sister's transformation. Aw. Oh, okay. So, yes, it just seems like so many people since 2020, since that started, I lost my first cousin. I mean, he was my first cousin, but it was the first time in my family that one of my cousins had transitioned. And he was younger than me. And apparently it was all of natural causes, which, I mean, that's just really weird. Um, and then I read about someone else today who passed away. They too were younger than me. Not that age has any bearing on that, but sometimes it just surprises us more when a younger person passes than an older person. And I know that's probably some preconceived ideas, but you're just starting to see it so much more now in so many people. Get out of toxic relationships. Get out. Get out. Toxic relationships, toxic situations. They are leaving scars on your soul. Now, this may be in your work environment. This may be in your home. This may be in your circle of friends. But you deserve so much more. And it's time you realize that. You have to believe that you are worthy of so much more. Now, I'm not going to say I've never been in a toxic relationship in my life. Of course. I think everyone experiences that. But looking back on it now, I totally see why it happened. I totally see what I learned from that. I totally see how I grew from that. And if any of those people were to enter into my life now, like our energy would be so far from each other that we probably wouldn't even be on the same side of the street. And that's not anything that I would ever get into now because, well, for one, I know I deserve more than that. But when you're in that place, and it's hard because when you're in that place, you don't feel like you deserve more. You feel like, well, this person loves me. This, and it's it messes with your head. It really does. But you've got to just, heal it, get out of it. When you remove yourself from the situation, and then you'll be able to look at it a little more clearly, and you'll see it as an outsider, and it'll look completely different to you. Then you will be able to see your lessons. Then you will be able to see how you've changed and how you've grown. And you will soon believe, with a lot of love for yourself, that you are worth so much more. Do you have any regrets in life? If you were to take your last breath tonight, would you leave this world with regrets? Now, really think about that. Think seriously. Would you leave this world with unsaid things that you should have said or things you should have done that you didn't do? You are still breathing, and that can change. You can change it. But remember, the clock is ticking. Marcia said she's sending hugs to you, Tiffany. Oh, and Robin. Sarah says, I never realized that I needed to forgive myself and how important it is until I read your book. Aw, it makes total sense. It does. It does make total sense. And how many times in our lives have we just been so brutally mean to ourselves? Have you ever, and I really notice this when I hear people say it, but like, have you ever maybe you wrote a word out and you spelled it wrong. You go, oh my God, I'm so stupid. And you hear people say this stuff all the time, but your mind hears it. Your body believes it. Even though you probably meant nothing by it. That energy is still stored there. And that's just something really small and minor. The way you talk to yourself is so important because your body hears everything that you say. Okay, Sarah. Okay, Robin's going to be driving. Linnell says, forgive yourself for everything because it's all just levels on up. Less lessons, not baggage. But yeah, you can move past that. And you have to move past that. Robin says, I have been forgiving myself for everything I put Robin through. I have been learning big lessons. Well, that's awesome. That is so awesome. And that's what you need to do. Marcia says, yes, Ruth, I catch myself all the time. Watch my thoughts. Yes. And you know what? Like, I used to say things like that to myself. I don't know if I ever called myself stupid, but because I just never cared for that word. But, I would always put myself down. And I would not just think it, but I would say it out loud. And, you get used to hearing that. So it's like nothing. It's like nothing when somebody else says it to you, right? And, you beat yourself up emotionally when someone else does it. You don't even recognize it because you're used to it. And that's how, it starts. We get into these toxic relationships. But now, if you were talking to yourself nice every day, telling yourself, oh, I love you. Oh, you're so wonderful. You're so kind, saying wonderful things all the time. Somebody came along and said, hey, dummy, you're so stupid. It's going to hit you. You're going to be like, whoa, I don't like that energy because, it's something you're not used to. Treat yourself really good. This is why, our self-healing is so important. We have to let go of all of that. And, grief is very strange. Like the missing my mom never goes away. I always miss her. But the pain of losing her lessens every day. It really does. I don't think about her now and burst into tears or feel that pain in my heart, because she's gone. I feel her around me all the time. And I talk to her and, lots of stuff. But grief is really strange. And it affects people differently. And it will show up. It will show itself to you in many different ways. It might cause you to withdraw from your friends, from life as you know it. It might cause you to lash out in anger. However it shows up for you, know this. Know that it is grief disguised as something else. Because when you can recognize that, then you realize where the healing needs to take place. I mean, if you're just lashing out at people, being angry all the time, from what they see, they'll think, wow, that's a really mean person. But it's just your grief is coming out in that form. But once you heal it, that's not going to happen. Oh, you guys are so sweet. Sarah says, you're such a great inspiration for all of us. Sarah, I really, really, really appreciate you saying that. Thank you. Robin says, I'm getting messages tonight for sure. Thank you for a great show. Well, you are so welcome. And Robin loves us all. And we all love you, Robin. Until you face it, until you deal with it, and until you heal it, it's going to continue to plague you and affect every aspect of your being. Every aspect. The grief, the unhealed issues. And it's like that. It's like that for any of our feelings or issues that we suppress. We try to push them down. And so what do? Sometimes we push them down with food. We push them down with alcohol because we don't want to feel them, because it hurts. And I'm not mocking anyone. It does hurt. Dealing with those things hurts a lot. Suppressing that, it does damage us at every level. But they're going to continue to come up in one way or another until you heal them. It could come up, as something else, but it's going to give you those same feelings and same emotions that you're trying to suppress. Maybe you feel guilt. Maybe you feel anxiety over the way your relationship with the other person ended. Maybe you weren't on good terms when they left. That's something that you will have to work through. But the sooner you can do that, the better it will be for you. Grief does not have to control your life. You can work through it and heal it. That doesn't mean that you didn't love the person that you're grieving for. It just means that you can move on with your life, that you accept it and you can move on. The love is still there. It's always going to be. It will never die. Grief has no timetable. It takes as long as it takes to work through your loss. Some people can work through it rather quickly. I mean, it took me 3 years till I was starting to feel somewhat, I don't want to use the word normal, but somewhat human again. Because I just walked around in a daze for so long, like so long. And it's a strange feeling because it's not like your mind is focused on anything else. It's like there's nothing there but like clouds or fog or something in your head because nothing is clear. And it's a very strange feeling. And I'll tell you another strange feeling was when I was reading from that chapter in my book, because I haven't read my book since I first published it. So when I was looking over this the other day, it's like, wow, this is really different reading it now. And so as I was reading it, like I'm seeing all of this happening in my mind from when it really happened. But then I'm also at the same time remembering how I felt when I wrote about it. And then I'm reading it. And it was just like, it was like crazy all at once. It was really weird feeling. But it was a good one. Not that those are happy memories. But that day is just as clear in my head as it was the day that it happened. Some of it, not all of it, not going to lie. It's not all clear, but the part that impacted me the most was. And, a lot of times when someone passes like that, well, like we had family members that were on their way and, they didn't get there in time. After their plane landed, my mom knew the plane landed. She decided it was time to go. That's the way it was meant to be. I don't know why. But a lot of times people associate that with guilt. I should have been there. I should have done this. I should have done that. And I did that when my grandmother passed back in 86. I felt so bad. I was the only family member that wasn't there. I carried that guilt for like probably 20 years. No, excuse me. And, and that really just like bothered me. It haunted me. I felt like I should have been there. I lived in a different state at the time and I couldn't get there. We didn't know she was going to pass at that time. And like I was the only one not there, only one. And I thought, well, geez, I felt so much guilt for such a long time. And I came to realize that it wasn't meant for me to be there. It happened just the way it was supposed to for whatever reason, because I do believe everything happens for a reason. And for whatever reason, I wasn't meant to be there. Now, is that because I was pretty young then, and my grandmother at the time, she was like one of my favorite people in the whole world. And, maybe I wouldn't have handled it well. Maybe it would have been way too much for me. Or maybe seeing her like that would have been too much for me, because I will tell you at the funeral home, she did not at all look like my grandmother. She looked completely different. And that made it a lot easier for me at the funeral, which might sound crazy. But so, anyways, so maybe within an hour of my mom transitioning, the family members are knocking at the door and open the door, and I just burst into tears because I felt so bad for them that they, got there when they did. And at the time, everyone's still so much in shock, but it wasn't meant to be. It just wasn't meant to be. Now, whether that was, because my mom didn't want, certain people to see her, in that condition, or if it was for these other people, who knows? But all I know is it was for the best and highest good of all involved, and that's the way it's supposed to happen. So when something like that happens with you, don't feel that guilt. Don't feel like, you should have been there. If you should have been there, you would have been there. Or else it would have happened differently. I totally believe that. All different. Dad, sister, and brother, Linnell says. Sarah says, I've used alcohol before to deal with what was going on. I decided I'm not going to get anywhere being drunk. I was on a 6-month binge, so grateful to be free of that. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing that. It's not easy always to share stuff like that about ourselves. And I really appreciate that. And I know that's going to help someone else. And I love where you said, I decided I'm not going to get anywhere being drunk. And that is such a smart move. That is awesome. Sometimes we're not meant to be there at the last moments. Very true. And, and I feel like we get to choose when it's our time. We get to choose how we want to go. My dad certainly did. He wanted to go in the room with my mom, just him and my mom, and her holding his hand. And that's exactly how he passed. Even though the house had been full of people for 2 weeks, at that, that one morning for that hour, however long it was, where they were alone, that's when he decided to go. And, and I have to honor that and respect that even though we were there around the clock with him, that's how he wanted it to be. So it was. And who am I to say that's not okay? That's not my choice. That's not my journey. I know we've all have losses in life, and we all experience these things. And when it happens, a lot of times it can be such a huge shock. It's something totally unexpected. But even, I will tell you from my own experience with a lot of my family, we knew beforehand. And, while it doesn't really make it any easier, it kind of does, because you get the time that you spend with them. Like, the last several years that I spent with my mom and the last few months that I had of my dad's life that I spent with him, it was like the most quality time, the most loving time. Every time I would leave, like to go somewhere, run to the grocery store or something, my dad would call me in there and say, "Where'd you going? When are you going to be back?" I'm like, "Dad, I'm just running to the grocery store. I'll be right back." "Why? What's wrong?" He always made me think something was wrong. He's like, "I just miss you. I just want you to be here with me." And, and it's so amazing watching someone go through this journey. And I don't mean amazing like it's a fun experience, but I learned so much because the focus, when you don't have that much time left here, the focus isn't how many orders can I get from Amazon this week. The focus isn't, where can I spend my money? The focus isn't, I'm going to go buy some new clothes. No, the focus is, I want to spend time with the people I love. I just want to be with them. We don't have to be doing anything. We can just sit there and stare at each other. It doesn't matter. That's what matters to people, is the time that you spend with them. And I have to say, I'm really grateful for that I got that experience with both of my parents. I don't know, I may feel a lot different, and it may have taken me way longer to do my healing if that hadn't been my experience, if it would have been like something very abrupt and all of a sudden. Yes, we knew, but when it actually happened, it was still a shock. If that makes any sense to anybody. I think I talk too much. My mouth is so dry. So I thank you all for being here tonight. I'm so grateful for every single one of you. As I said at the beginning of the show, if I can find my notes here, I want to just remind everybody it was about the testimonials, and I had put out a challenge to you guys to sit down and write out a testimonial for each one of the Goldylocks shows that you watch. I did it for all the shows last week, and it took me 5 to 7 minutes from the time I started it till I submitted my email. You don't have to write, a paragraph, just a couple, 2 or 3 sentences. So this week, my challenge to you is for you guys to do this. I want each one of you that can hear my voice to write a testimonial for each of the shows that you watch. And you can send it to me or Tiffany. And several people have already accepted the challenge: Sarah, Jill, and Kim. So I'm hoping that many more of you will as well, because we would really appreciate it. The testimonials will be shown on the Goldylocks Productions website, and I believe she said we can put them on our individual websites as well if they're about us. So I hope you guys will take 5 minutes of your day between now and next Wednesday and do that. If you love the shows on Goldylocks, if you love the host, if you love the producer, which we all do, then please take a few minutes to do that, because we would all greatly appreciate it. Sarah says, that's like my dad now. He isn't talking right now, but I know by us visiting him that it means so much to him. It does, Sarah. It does. And, it's got to be so frustrating. And I saw this with my mom, too. It's got to be so frustrating to not be able to verbalize what you want to say. It's like the words are trapped inside of their body and they just can't get it out. My mom she tried to write it, but it was so hard to understand. And then if you didn't know what she was talking about, she'd get very upset. So, of course we did our best, but I can understand him being really frustrated. And just because he can't verbalize it and say it, know that he is feeling it, Sarah. Quality time can always be felt with the heart. That is right. That is right, Sarah. That's beautiful. Thank you, Melissa. Melissa said, great show. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight, and all of you people over on Rumble that are watching. I appreciate you. You guys are a pretty quiet bunch over there. But I want to thank all of you. I love and appreciate every single one of you. And I look forward to next week. Who knows what we'll be talking about then. But I'll be excited to know. And as soon as I do, I will let you guys know. So you guys have a wonderful, wonderful week. I love you all. Good night.
Share your appreciation to our show hosts by submitting a testimonial for your favorite Goldylocks Productions show.